Hi, I'm Chris Masters and I'm a technical sales consultant with AVEVA. In this video, we'll take an in-depth look at how to use the event record auto-completion capability in AVEVA Production Management, formerly known as Ampla. If you're capturing asset or process area delay events using Ampla, it may be worth looking into the use of the decision matrix functionality within the product to auto-complete some of these events. Auto-completion of delay events can reduce manual data entry as well as improve the quality of the resulting data. Firstly, let's take a look at what delay scenarios we should target. The obvious one would be repetitive delays where we have a high degree of confidence as to what caused the delay. An example might be where a bin that stores material being fed into an asset is running low. The process may be set up to reduce the output rate from the bin in order to manage the level. This may then result in the asset being monitored to run slow or stop altogether. Another example may be where an asset is stopped due to an upstream or downstream equipment delay. It is also handy to auto-complete delays where the SCADA alarms point to a specific cause for the stoppage or slow running delay event. Now that we have some of the delay scenarios to target, we must identify the tags and logic that will power the rules within Ampla. Ideally, we want to source data tags that provide a true or false type value for each rule or scenario we wish to use. Where possible, you should avoid creating complex expressions in Ampla using multiple tags to determine whether a rule should be active or not. Keeping this logic in Ampla may be making it vulnerable to being broken if changes are made at the PLC or SCADA levels. A final note when looking at what tags to use is that Ampla will be expecting the tag to be up to date when a delay is created or shortly thereafter. Best practice is that we populate the delay event record using auto-completion capability when the record is first created rather than at a later time. Now that we have some delay scenarios in mind and the tags and logic to drive these scenarios, we'll jump across into my Ampla VM and have a look at how we can test some of those input tags and the logic before configuring the matrix. Okay, now we're in the AVEVA Production Management 2020 Studio interface. So Ampla is essentially a client interface, or the Studio interface is the interface where we configure the application. So here in my demo system, you'll see that I have a system configuration folder and I have data sources, and I've set myself up a historian data source, and that's connected to a Wonderware historian on this machine where I'm pushing in some simulated values for this matrix test. So I have 4 tags: asset stopped, which is driving the delay essentially on the fictitious asset. I've got values A, B, and C. So they'll act as the flags that tell me if a auto-completion rule is valid or not. So they're set up as input variables. Then if we go down into the hierarchy, I've set myself up a decision matrix node in here. And then the first thing to look at here is the production reporting point that I've installed. Now, I've set that production reporting point up and I've added a field for each of the input values that we have. So each of those input tags is set up. So asset stopped, values A, B, and C, and then I've set them up with the correct data types so that they capture properly. I've also set them up, and you might want to check this, that you really want to have refresh value on capture set to true so that the most recent value is captured at the time. And then you also need to set up a capture condition for each of those fields or each of those tags so that if any one tag changes, the production reporting point will capture a new value and it will then show us at what time any one of those changed. Okay, so 4 fields there with the input variables and then 4 capture conditions there. Okay, now that we have that, I'll give you a look at what that looks like inside of the Ampla client. So here we are inside the Ampla client now, and we have timestamps of when these values are capturing, and we can see the duration between from the last capture. Now this is where we can see our asset stopped value is toggling as I'm simulating that, and then we also can see our values A, B, and C showing that if they're active or inactive. So again, the example here might be a rule might say if this asset has stopped and value A is active, then complete the record with a particular set of cause, location, cause, classification, or something similar to that. So now that we have that set up, that's very handy. We can now keep an eye on the inputs and get a feel for the behavior between those inputs, because some rules can be set up using multiple inputs. So if we go back into Studio now, and we have a look in here, we can now set up the actual decision matrix itself. So I can right click the decision matrix. So what you'll find when you create a new one is it'll be effectively empty. So I'll create a new one just to show you what that looks like. So it has no properties or no items underneath that. So what we have to do is we have to add our inputs, add our outputs, add rules. So here I've already configured this. I have 4 inputs which correspond with my stopped value A, B, C, and C. And then I've created these rules. So get your inputs in there and set up, and they're all linked back to my main data source. Then add the rules. Now when you add each rule, you need to link that particular rule to the input variable that you're watching. So I'm actually saying that this rule, I want it to output a value only when my asset stopped flag is true and the others are all false. So as opposed to true or false, I can actually ignore inputs altogether if they're just not relevant. So you can see here that we can have multiple inputs either being in a true or false state to drive this particular rule. So the next trick here that we have these rules in place is we need to set ourselves up so that we can actually see which of these rules is firing according to the inputs that we've set up. So I've set up an output on my decision matrix. So if I go output there, I've set that up. Now that output automatically populates against each of the rules. And that output, what I've done is I've set it with a string value, and I've given it a string that just basically says the name of the rule that it's activated. So what's going to happen over time, as these inputs are changing, I'm going to be able to monitor on this output which rule is being pushed out, or which value is being pushed out which corresponds with the active rule or no active rule, as it might turn out. So now that I've got that done in here and that's set up and I've saved and started that, I've then gone back into the production reporting point. I've then added another field called name of active rule, and I've linked it back to the decision matrix. So AVEVA decision matrix, name of active rule, which is one of the outputs that I've linked it to. So now I've linked this data field in the production reporting point to this particular output. Okay. So now what that allows me to do when I look back in the client is now I have value, sorry, wrong place. So now what I'll do is I'll show that field. Name of active rule. So now what you can see is that these are the inputs that I'm using to drive those rules, and this is the rule that has been triggered, and these are the outputs that are coming from the matrix. So this now allows me to check the input tags and the logic and check what is being pushed out by the matrix. So I'm doing all of this in a production reporting point prior to hooking it up to downtime, and that's because I have that full visibility in here. So this is a really good way to set the decision matrix up and check that it's functioning in the way that you require, because you'll have a number of these outputs. So you'll when you set this up to configure downtime auto completion, these outputs will actually correspond with your cause location, your delay cause, your delay classification, and possibly other bits and pieces as well. So once that's all done, we go back into Studio one final time, and that is where we then link the matrix outputs to the downtime reporting point. So I have this name of active rule, but I can then also add another output and call that my my cause. Oops. So that can be my cause code, and then I'll also have classification. You can see that it's populated that output through all of the different rules. So if I save that, when I go down to my downtime reporting point now, I can then go to my cause field, which is down here, and now I can go and link that to the output of the matrix. So AVEVA decision matrix, it's this guy here. Wrong one, sorry. Yep. There's the cause there, so I can just double click that. Oops, sorry, samples, add that samples in there, say OK to that, and now I can save that. So now any delay that I record on my downtime reporting point here, which is going to be driven by my stopped value that I also had. Now it will populate with a cause code that I push off of each of these rules, which I haven't actually set up at this stage. But that's how you link the downtime reporting point back to the decision matrix. Okay, so I've gone through a lot of stuff there very quickly. You may need to sort of slow that down or refer to the Ampla help, but hopefully that helps. Thanks for watching.